All right, welcome to April 3rd's public hearing for the Finance Committee on the proposed town budget and warrant. So why don't we get started? Our agenda today is just to go through the warrant articles and get any feedback from the public. And we have a few public officials here to answer any questions. So I think what I'll do maybe is, since there is a person from the public here, perhaps ask you if which article, say your name and where you live, like what your street address, and then let us know what article you want to speak about, and then we'll go sequentially after that.
Evening, sorry I'm a little late.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name's Todd Chilhonick, live at 10 Bramble Path,
Okay.
new resident, so,
Was there a particular article you were interested in, or you just...
no, I'm here for general knowledge.
Okay. So the way we're going to go through this is sequentially through the warrant. Did you have any particular questions on any of the articles?
Do you know what an article is?
Don't worry, none of these guys do.
We're hoping to learn something. We appreciate the trust, Brian.
I'll make it Peter.
So I explain what an article
Okay,
is.
so we encourage all the public to come to the town meeting on May 7th, 2008. It's going to be held at the Hale Auditorium. So the way we typically do this is we go through each of the articles and we solicit public from our input from the public. But seeing as there aren't any specific questions for the articles, I think this might be rather quick.
All right.
All right, so the first article that that we're gonna address is the reports from selectmen and other committees. So that'll be something that we present as part of the town meeting. Special committees will also, the reports will be accepted by the Board of Selectmen in Article 2. In Article 3, there's a schedule of what they call a step schedule of salaries for different positions for town employees, and there's a new step schedule that's presented here in the warrant. Typically, they spend a couple years in each one of the steps, and then they receive a schedule pay raise. This is in addition to the cost of living adjustment, which this year happens to be 2%. They can also receive merit increases of pay as well. In fact, if you want a warrant, there's an extra warrant up here if you'd like to draft a warrant. Can you hear what, Brian?
Yeah, it's sometimes hard for me to see on the screen.
Yep. Schedule B, there's an hourly rate warrant. Hourly rate schedule. In Group A, there's also, which happens to be cemetery workers and some of the other positions. In Group B, there's a different group of workers. Group C has a much larger list. Group D has another group of town employees, and lastly, Group E is another one, and Group F and G. In Schedule C, these are single rate positions, so these are positions that receive a set amount based on an annual salary. The next section is Article 4, where we've laid out, this is the draft warrant we're looking at, by the way, so this is going to change depending upon how the FinCom, the Finance Committee, votes this evening to recommend different articles. So what you'll see here when you're looking is the 2008 budget, the fiscal year 19 budget, which is the one we'll be voting on at the warrant, and then how the town administrator and selectmen recommend their recommended budget, and then the finance committee recommended budget. So right now, all these numbers are gonna look identical because we haven't voted yet from the finance committee. And it may end up being identical if we agree with everything that's in the warrant. So just scroll down here, you'll see a list of salaries for each one of the positions for the town employees. You can find all that information in there. One thing I'd point out is that there is it is broken up into sections, so the first 33 lines in this article are actually summed up here. So if you're interested to know what the general municipal budget is for just the town, excluding the schools, I'm sorry. It doesn't include public safety and everything. So this is just the general government. And as you scroll down all the way past line 77, you will find the total cost for the article for the town employees' wages and salaries summed up there. Okay, so Article 5 is the reserve fund. So this is the fund that the FinCom administrates. One of our duties, other than recommending articles based upon what we believe is in the voters' interests, is we also oversee a reserve fund that's historically been at $70,000 per year. Right now, our fund is about $30,000 expended, but usually in the last 2 months of the budget year or the fiscal year, we get quite a few reserve fund transfers, and we have a couple we're going to deal with tonight. So $70,000 is being asked for the reserve fund. There's a couple new revolving funds that are being proposed by the Board of Selectmen, and also from the fire department. So that's something that you're going to want to take a look at. And it's worth noting that I think the first 33 articles are part of the consent calendar, which means that we will vote on them in totality at town meeting, unless somebody asks to have one pulled out to be discussed individually. So what'll happen is we'll say, we're gonna vote on all these together, and then unless somebody says they want one taken out, we'll just vote on them all and they'll all pass. So it's really important that people take a look at this in case they want to pull something out in particular. One thing that we'll be talking about after this public hearing in detail among the committee is these new reserve funds that are being established by the Board of Selectmen. One by the Board of Selectmen, one by the fire department.
Reserve funds or revolving funds?
Excuse me, thank you. Thank you, Chair Brian of the Board of Selectmen.
Only red.
Oh, you read?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the purposes of our meeting. tonight.
Okay. Right, they're revolving funds, and so the important thing about the revolving fund, in fact, Brian, do you want to add a little color here on the revolving funds? These are new revolving funds, correct?
Yes, as for our member of the public who was in attendance tonight, do you know anything about revolving funds? Okay.
Sorry you came. Yes.
Okay, I just don't want to teach you something you already know. There's two ways to fund any kind of government operations. One is by actually three, but one is to appropriate and authorize and appropriate. That's where the money we spend out of your property tax dollars, excise tax dollars every year. The other is to transfer and
Appropriate and
authorize.
transfer.
Pardon?
Appropriate and transfer.
Appropriate and transfer, excuse me. And that's where money that we already have lying around is used for another item. It's not, of course, lying around, it's money that was saved over in other tax years and wasn't used. That's exactly what the reserve fund is. It's an opportunity for this finance committee every year, in between town meetings, to pay over to certain operations that we didn't budget for precisely, or to take money from where there's an overage. Is that making sense?
Absolutely.
The last way is with what's known as a revolving fund. That's where certain, in fact, at this point, most operations of government generate fees and other kinds of expenses, and other kinds of charges, that people have to pay in order to get a dog license, in order to get a conservation commission license. And rather than just send this money back to the general fund, because the operations are closely tied to the fees that are coming in. For example, when the Conservation Commission charges a fee for doing work, then they have to oversee that work and make sure it's in conformance with licenses and state laws and bylaws. So it makes sense, rather than to take the fees that the Conservation Commission charges for its license and permits back to the general fund, we let them keep it in what's known as a revolving fund. And that revolving fund pays for some of those expenses. Yes, well, I was mentioning your name, but only in a good way. That's Cassie Vera from our Conservation Commission. So those are the three ways that we fund the operations of government. And the Massachusetts statute allows us to create revolving funds. And we have, I don't know, that'd be a good, interesting question to find out how many revolving funds we have now.
We're gonna find out. We think that there's several.
There are more than several, I think.
Recreation, what else?
Inspectors.
Well, inspectors now. Looks like this is new. I could be wrong.
No.
I can give you
That's
some
not-
No,
theory.
that's not new.
It's not new, okay.
Yeah, I can give you some theory and philosophy, but right now, it's just a budgeting tool.
No, that works, that makes perfect sense. I'm just,
And something's wrong with me.
Okay.
No, I think Kathy said in her thing that
You
she
can ask
has a
questions
revolving
later.
fund. Conservation Land Maintenance Fund is a revolving
Yeah,
fund.
they have
Yeah.
three.
So how come we don't do that to this every year?
Because we're just creating these. These are new ones.
These are new ones.
The
Once you create
conservation?
one,
The cost,
So these are new ones. They're applying $40,000. So
no, those are in there every year.
are they in there every year?
Yeah. Just saying, I don't know why it's in there every year, but it is. Setting the limit every year, but I was wondering why this conservation one isn't doing that too.
I don't see every single revolving fund in here every year. I know that, the rec would have to be here. I think once they're created,
Well,
They-
those are in there every year, since I have the 2 years I've been.
and the revolving fund, it would be an interesting question. I'll try to remember that. But, and I do know, I do see inspection fees gets created every year. That might just be the nature of that particular revolving fund, that it has to be created every year. But most of the revolving funds that we've been dealing with in your review of the departmental budgets that include revolving funds, you'll notice are not in here and are never here.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question about whether the inspection fees, it reoccurs here. But and I'll check, I have a feeling that the advanced life support systems or services, once that revolving fee fund is set up pursuant to statute, then it's there for good. And you notice that, it's actually the same statute too. I don't get that. I can ask.
We can ask Kathy why hers isn't there, and maybe it's the same answer for all of them.
I don't know.
We'll find out.
Kathy's community.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that they know that. I think they know, if the departments know if they've got a revolving fund. I'm not sure they know exactly why they're not on the art.
But
Not on here every year.
we will find out about that and report back to you, Brian.
No, I'll try to remember to ask next Tuesday night.
Okay, so the police department in Article 3, as they have, we apply money towards the SWIFT notification system every year. One's for weights and measures. We'll be talking to Kathy Safara later on tonight about the transfer to the conservation fund as well as to the, turn pink. We'll do that. To the wetlands fund and also to the conservation fund. So those are 3 revolving funds that we are applying more money to. Which brings us to Article 13, which we asked the assessor to join us this evening, and we're happy to have her here. If you could introduce yourself and you could chat with us about these articles.
So I'm Kristen Fox, I'm the principal assessor for the town. And Article 13 is the valuation article. It's the money that the town uses to update property valuations every year. It's allocated to different vendors for different services, mostly things like data collection, software maintenance, things like that. So, pretty standard. I mean, it doesn't vary much from year to year. This year, we're asking for $19,685 to be added to the article. And
Is that a typical amount?
It's a typical, yeah, it's
Okay.
lower than our 3-year average, let's put it that way, this year, 'cause we've had a little more carryover than we normally do, so.
What are special appraisals?
I think the question was, what are special appraisals?
Special appraisals is if we have an appellate tax board case and the property value is in dispute, and usually sometimes for large commercial properties, we'll have to actually hire an independent appraiser to come out and submit appraisals, so those can be quite pricey, so we like to have it there in case we need it. Some of it is legal funds. We have an appellate tax board case, we have to hire an attorney. I mean, in a high-profile appellate tax board case, just to write the post-trial brief runs about $7,500. So we have to have a substantial legal fund on ready for things like that.
Okay.
So what was this last year? What was the article, how much was the article for last year?
Oh, I don't have that number with me. It was-
14,000.
It was more, yeah.
14,000? And what are you carrying over? You said you had substantial
We're
carryover.
carrying over about 17,000 right now.
So you
we
only
have
used,
some-
only used 3,000 last year?
I'm sorry?
You only used 3,000
Oh,
of the?
no, we use much more than 3,000. I mean, it carries over every year,
They
so.
generally
Oh, that's
started around 36,000
Yeah,
is the
36
budget,
is
and
the-
then minus whatever's carried forward is roughly how it goes.
Okay, but you're carrying a $17,000 kind of rollover, is that what you said,
For this
Right.
year,
for this year?
that's estimated, so.
All right.
So why is this a special article and not in your budget?
Because I think budgeting purposes, if we don't spend it, it goes back to the general fund and, articles roll over, where we get to, basically roll the money over every year and not lose it.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, it's a revolving fund.
Right.
So the money, this is money that the assessor's office didn't use. It still needs to be appropriated plus a little more as part of the town meeting process rather than if it had gone into a revolving fund. Am I making sense now?
Who's paying
I believe she's
you?
asking,
Are you
why-
receiving
Why
fees
can't we
from
just
somebody?
budget the full amount each year?
A revolving
and then
fund,
give
you
back
receive
what's-
fees and you pay it out to whatever you're receiving to pay
Right.
for the. So if you have services that you offer as the assessor, why can't those services be part of a line item in your budget?
We're not offering any special services. This
I
is-
mean, just what you do as the assessor's
So
department.
the question is, why can't this be part of your budget as opposed to, do you know why this is a special article? Is this just the way it's always been?
Historically, it's always been done this way.
Yeah.
It was my understanding that it was to keep the money so you don't lose it every year. If I budget $1,000 for envelopes and I spend $900 goes back, we don't get to carry over.
Right, so if you don't spend it, it's still earmarked for
Right,
these
it's-
purposes.
It's still there for those
So why
purposes.
doesn't everybody do their entire budget as a special article then?
There's certain
I
fees that we
think-
know what they're going to be. I
Right.
can't anticipate legal costs Things like mapping, we get specific quotes every year. So I know, like, this year, my mapping budget is $2,200. I've been quoted $2,200 from the mapping vendor. It's not gonna be any more, it's not gonna be any less. So that's something I know I'm gonna expend. Usually items that I know I'm gonna expend all of it is a budget item.
Okay.
Do any assessor actions generate a revenue for the town?
Only certified butters lists, which run maybe, $20, $30 a piece.
Okay, so none of the special type of assessments that you do, there's any fee,
No,
that you charge
absolutely
anybody?
not.
It generates 80% of our budget revenues.
81,
Uh,
91.
90, maybe. But if you notice, in Article 9, there's the same kind of a deal, where they take money that was not used and then roll it into the next year.
Yeah, I don't understand that one either. Huh?
I think there are those who would say that that's simpler and clearer than having a full budget everything every year and then account for what's not used. I mean, then it's back in the general fund, and then what do you do?
Yeah, so this
Well,
money
it-
stays,
it-
the money stays there and earmarked specifically for this as opposed to flowing into free cash afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying why, why isn't everybody's budget that way so they don't lose it? I'm just
Well, I
saying,
think there, the option is there for this type of monies to be in everyone's budget.
okay,
You have the budget and you have the capital articles, and then
Yeah.
you could potentially have special articles.
I also think it's probably in excess of $10,000 is probably the reason why it's not here, but we can find out.
what's that?
It's in excess of $10,000.
So I think that's just capital.
Oh, okay. So we'll find out the answer to that question.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like the assessor knows specifically,
That's,
that's the way it's been done.
Yeah,
It's,
so, I
it's
mean,
town
it's
administrator.
to cover costs that really can't be pinpointed or exact. I mean, some years we have more appellate tax court cases than others. There's years we don't
Yeah,
hire
that
attorneys
makes
at all, you know what I mean? And then
That makes
there's, like
sense.
this year, I have already hired an attorney for a case, so, it's
Okay.
gonna take a big chunk of that carryover money, basically. So,
Okay,
It's easier to track the things that are consistent,
yes,
employee salaries and so on.
right.
Okay. So Article 15 is for road machinery and private ways. Article 16 is for highway road construction. That's quite a large sum at $282,000. I believe that's comes from our chapter 70 money, I think it might be.
90.
90, thank you. There's another consent calendar here for hazardous waste collection, so $4,500 from the Board of Health. Does a similar thing for the municipal solid waste, as well as for the public health nurse that we have, $4,500. So we look at Article 20 for the Stowe Cultural Council. Goes for things like the Springfest activities. In fact, the majority of $2,000 of that $3,500 expenditure is going for Springfest. In Article 21, we spend about $5,000 a year to install holiday decorations and lights for the holidays. So that's funding that from the Highway Department. On Article 22, we're spending $152,000 on the employee incentive program. That's grown considerably in the last couple of years. In fact, I think just this year it's grown by at least $20,000, maybe 30. So we'll have more to say to that after we've reviewed it and had some recommendations. We're reviewing the audit, there's an article in here for $12,000 to audit the financial records. In Article 24, this is a significant change that the town treasurer collector and the town administrator are contributing $100,000 into our other pension, other post-employment and
Benefit.
and benefits, thank you. Other post-employment benefits, which is an unfunded liability that's estimated to be around $6 million. and according to the town administrator, so we're putting $100,000 towards that this year, which is something that we're happy with. There's money here to be transferred to pay for the loans for the Harvard Acres Wells loan program from almost 10 years ago. Some to pay for the water system expenses for the town. $1,000 to $1,000 for the EDIC, which helps to make sure we're a business-friendly town, which we are. Another one here for Lake Boone water quality remediation, $27,000. For the planning board, there's $10,000 for them to update the master plan and some other engineering consulting expenses. Every year in Article 30 here, the Community Preservation Act allows us to tax ourselves 3% every year, which is the maximum, which we do. This is on top of our existing property taxes, and we earmark those for different things. In this particular article, we're transferring $35,000 to pay for wages and other expenses to administrate that. Part of that CPA Act that I just mentioned is we put certain percentage every year. I believe it's 10%. Is that right, Atlin? 10% for each of these areas. So there's 3 different areas that are earmarked. Preservation for historic resources, one for open space, and one for affordable housing. We're putting $73,500 in each one of those. That's something that we do every year.
Question from the public.
Yes, Brian.
Thank you.
Our chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The CPA Article 30,
Yes, sir.
that, do we appropriate $35,000 each, or appropriate and transfer $35,000 each year to help run that?
So,
Or is that
the
this year?
maximum that you can do from, for administrative purposes of the CPA fund is 5% of what you assume is gonna be the income for that budget year,
Okay.
right? What we are anticipating based on, funds from, the extra 3% that is limit on property from the town of Stowe and the matching fund from the state, that we feel comfortable that 35,000 represent 5% of that.
Yeah, this-
Approximately half of this is used for the administrative assistant, and the other half is used for consultants, things like that.
Yes, it's been a year since I liaisoned with CPC, but I still remember some of that. The question I've got is this amount in line with previous years?
It's probably less than previous years, if I remember correctly.
Because there's less than...
There's less matching funds.
All right, thank you, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, and this comes from the CPA funds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I seem to remember it being always close to around this amount, but it might be less.
It is slightly less, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what last year's.
You got last year's
Number
budget.
I can look it up. So let us
It's
go back.
always the 5% number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
We're
it-
spending
if
73.
it's down slightly,
That's what I was just trying to
yeah,
figure out. if
yeah, it's
how
not
much
drastically different.
in raw dollars it was
Yeah.
down, but I won't interrupt the proceedings
Not
any
much.
further.
Okay. So that's the conclusion of the consent calendar. Again, the consent calendar are the list of articles that are deemed to be reoccurring articles that we appropriate every year. There's a couple questions on some new revolving funds that we're gonna investigate. But that's the extent of the consent calendar. Any questions from anybody? Pretty straightforward. All right, so now we're moving into the part that we would vote on individually. The first area that this is typically a very large part of the special articles that are put forward is from the capital planning committee for the capital requests. So what we have here first is from the building department, there's a new HVAC design that they're looking to do for the town building. So the building inspector, Craig Martin, has requested $80,000 for that. That's gone through a process from the capital planning committee where they vet numerous projects, and they whittle it down to this list. And that's what we're seeing here. Did you have something to say? I thought I heard somebody. Okay. The fire chief is looking for a new command vehicle. He's looking for $45,000 for that. Highway is looking to improve some of the roadways on Carrington Way for $35,000 for Partridge Lane. The planning committee is looking for $50,000 for a complete street plan implementation, something we voted on last year. So that'll fund implementation of those plans that they've been doing. The police is seeking $20,000 for station repairs. I believe this is for repairs.
Rutted soffits.
Yeah, the soffits and some other things. They're also asking for some additional radio and computer equipment, about $20,000. And this is something that is coming from the Neshoba Regional School District. $17,000 to upgrade an exterior door security system. Replace a water heater at Hale. And also at Hale, improve the energy management system. And lastly, repair the HVAC at the auditorium. Something that's new this year is establishing a stabilization fund from the Neshoba Regional School District. So this is something to... Oh, go
I
ahead.
missed it, and I couldn't attend the capital planning committee, but what are what's the phase 2 energy management system?
That is something new that I haven't seen before. It's probably a question we're going to ask about. I know that they were seeking a lot more money to fix different things at Hale, and particularly in the auditorium.
Yeah, that I'm
Julianne, did
familiar
you-
with.
I'm trying to think.
Julianne's
of
our
what it was.
liaison. I mean, I haven't heard this before.
I'm trying to think of what, it was one of those really fuzzy topics. When they talk about what it's for, it's just to have, so you can, I'm sorry, I don't remember it well enough to describe it to you.
Maybe a different way of asking. Did the school system come in front of the capital planning
Yes.
to discuss this particular item?
Yes.
This was vetted and included as part of the list.
Probably their facilities.
Yeah, so we haven't voted on it.
Oh, you haven't voted on it.
No,
Capital planning hasn't voted on it yet?
we're
When do you
voting next week.
Okay. So this is
So-
not the full vetted list.
But of course,
Yeah, this
you
is
can
the
always
list,
ask
you
this
just haven't
question
voted.
at the most...
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but of course you can always ask this question at the most important meeting in all three towns tomorrow night in Lancaster.
At the
They
Tri-Town?
canceled that meeting.
It
They
canceled.
canceled right
I
now?
just got an email.
Yeah,
I don't doubt you, but
I can't believe it.
we haven't had one of those. How are the selectmen going to sound self-important without Tri-Town?
That was gonna be an awesome meeting.
you guys always manage to do that.
But not if there's no platform. It's nowhere for us.
All right.
I
Thank
got
you.
a
Did you
April
see your
2nd
email?
email.
Where's my email?
No, I didn't get it.
Let me find it.
April 2nd at 1:22, yesterday.
Mm-hmm. All right, so getting back to the articles here, if we've answered the esteemed selectman chair's
Sorry.
questions. Something I think that I know I support, although I'm not sure we've discussed it explicitly, the FinCom, is that the Neshoba Regional School Committee is establishing a stabilization fund to fund future capital projects. In this particular, it's related to the track and resurfacing the turf field at the high school, but I believe they're going to keep this ongoing. So this will be money specifically raised and earmarked for capital projects, so that we won't have have to come to the voters every time there's a new capital project. We'll be able to smooth out how that works over time.
Well, there's no appropriation with this, right? We're just
They're
establishing.
voting to establish it. Yep. Yep, that's a good point, Peter. Thanks for pointing that out. There's no money associated with this one yet. So we're appreciative of the assessor showing up again to talk to about these special articles. So maybe you could walk through.
Yep. Article 34, this is an article that's usually on the consent calendar, but there's been some changes to it, so we took it off the consent calendar. This is the article every year that increases the amount of personal exemptions up to 100% for seniors, blind persons, veterans, surviving spouses. Normally, we vote this in under the Chapter 126 of the Acts of 1988. That has since been repealed. It has been replaced with Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5C1/2. Does the same thing. It doubles the base amount for the exemptions. The difference this year is this is a one-time vote. If this passes, you will not see this again on the consent calendar or anywhere else. It will be for fiscal 19 and every fiscal year going forward, basically.
So this is a town decision to double what the state.
It's a local option.
Yeah. So we're opting to double our, what's it called again?
The big personal exemption.
Personal
amounts.
exemption for
For
seniors,
seniors, veterans, blind
blind-
persons,
blind people,
surviving spouses.
surviving spouses. Okay.
So when you say seniors, are we talking all seniors?
We're talking seniors that qualify. There are definitely requirements that need to be met.
So what are, in general, what are the requirements? Are they
Depending
veterans?
on
Are
which
they?
exemptions, sometimes 65 years and older, sometimes 70 years and older. I have, the income and asset requirements are gonna be addressed in another couple articles.
Okay, so it's
coming up,
based on the
so-
income and the assets that they hold?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And like I said, historically, this is always on the consent calendar, but because they've changed the law, we wanted to do it properly because the state is recommending that it be a one-time vote from now on. We don't have
Rather
to-
than having it be in the consent
Rather than
calendar.
every year have to explain it and, put
Okay.
it on there.
So is there any way to put a dollar amount? I mean, is there any way to get an idea of how much we're talking about with the exemption, just for?
The base amounts, for blind persons right now is $500. Veterans, is around $400.
These are our.
And
These are
this
the
is-
town's
These are
amounts.
the state amounts.
Okay, but we're doubling that.
But I
so-
mean,
So
if you-
we're
if
doubling that.
It's quite a small number.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
It
what,
reduces the
20 to
value of their
30,000,
property?
somewhere in that
No, it
range?
gives them an actual exemption off their taxes, so they actually
Right.
get a
It
credit on
reduces
their
it, it's a
bill.
tax credit.
So
Okay.
historically, how much has this been in total that the town has given this exemption? What amount in?
I think every year we exempt probably about 68,000.
Is it that much?
in-
Okay, a little more than I
in,
thought, but it's not a
statutory
big number.
exemptions.
Under this one, not,
Under
because we've got
34.
several other exemptions to go through. I'm assuming they're all different.
They're new, the ones underneath it are new, so I'm gonna explain.
But this one has been historically about
This is
68,000
historically,
within Stowe.
I'd say, somewhere around there.
Is it pretty
It
level?
changes every year. I mean, some people move away.
Right.
Unfortunately, some people pass away, Some people go from being only 20% disabled as a veteran to 100%, so they fluctuate based on circumstances.
Now, would this particular article, would that double it or increase it or decrease it?
It
Or
just doubles the base amount that the state gives us to
doubles
raise
the
it.
base amount?
So the base amount is for,
The base amounts are all based
Doesn't
from
matter
the
to
Division of
hear.
Local Services.
We're
Those
just
are the
taking
amounts that
From
they
this is the public.
basically institute. And because they're so low and they've never changed, I mean, I've been an assessor for 17 plus years. These amounts have never changed. So we vote to double the base amount to give the seniors and veterans a little more relief, basically.
So could you say that it would basically double the amount of exemption that we would have under this, from 68 to 100 and?
Well, no, that is the double amount.
68
We've,
is-
we've always
is the
doubled
double.
it, so
Yeah.
the numbers, this isn't a new double.
We
It's
do
not-
it every year.
Okay.
So 68 is the.
68.
I'm just trying to get a feel for
Yeah.
how much money in total Stowe has been exempting under this, not that it's a.
We get reimbursed for the base amount every year from the state.
Ah,
We do not get reimbursed for the doubling.
oh, I see.
So the taxpayers subsidize the doubled amount. We get reimbursed from the state every year for the base exemption
Ah,
amount.
okay.
Where is that in the, where is
So
that, how
Peter
is
is
that
pretty
received
close
from
to
the state?
right.
We file an MDM1 every year. It's called an MDM1 form. We file it after, April 1st is the deadline for personal exemptions. So after April 1st, after we've granted all the exemptions that we know we're going to grant, we file the MDM1 and we get
And
state.
it goes into the general
Yeah,
account?
I believe so.
It's not the right.
Brian, did you?
Just if you and your committee are kind enough to hear me, based upon my experience with Council on Aging, I have a comment and then I have a question. This kind of money, first off, in individual cases, it's very short money. I mean, we're not talking about huge exemptions on any one tax rate, but of course, you have to aggregate it and get a sense of how much it's costing the town. But the other thing, and I'm not sure this is you may consider this a valid justification, but almost every community in the Commonwealth does this.
Yeah, I think that sort of the challenge here, Brian, if I can editorialize for a minute, is we get the warrant every year about 4 days before we have to
I understand.
talk about this. So it's something that we're going to want to change for next year, so that we have a chance to talk about this internally beforehand, especially for the new members like Thomas. But
This is a great idea. In fact, this is, if you want to learn how town government works, this is the best meeting, the best committee to go to. This is
absolutely,
the best committee to become an associate member. This is the best way of understanding how municipal government works, is on finance committee. That's why I show up here engaged, rather than the selectmen's meeting where I'm kind of zoning on.
So Christian, could I ask you another question?
Sure.
I looked up that tax law number and everything, and it said that there's a $2,000 property value exemption. That's not how we do it. A $2,000 property value exemption to taxation, up to $175 in taxes.
Well, that sounds like 17D. Clause 17D is $175.
so that would be a
It
good.
was 5C and a half.
Well, 5C and a half is the language to basically increase by 100% the base amount.
Okay, so that has nothing to do, what I just said has nothing to do with ours. It's just a base $500 and
Well,
or something like that.
They're all different.
Yeah,
They're
and
all
we
different.
double it.
This just
So it's just a
doubles them all
tax
at
credit.
once.
It's not a drop in your property valuation.
No,
Okay, great.
no, it's a credit.
And I have a
The only
question.
reason I ask is, one thing we're thinking about doing, if I may editorialize, is make the finance comment have a little bit of a story like what this is, because to me, that's just a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, and I'm
Yes.
like, what is this for? And how much is it? Like, am I voting for $5,000 or am I voting for $1 million? It doesn't
Right.
even say.
Right.
So we're just want to make it clear, so in our little write-up, I want to just be able to say, we want to be able to say what it is, so.
I have a question for the assessor, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
Ask him directly. Do we cover in one of these subsequent articles the senior tax work-off program?
No.
That's something that, where does that show up in the budget, if at all?
The senior work-off program comes out of the overlay.
Ah,
Yeah.
automatically?
Well, depending on how many people are in the program and, you know, how much they work. Basically, they can earn up to $1,500 a year now, so.
So I can see how it would make sense to put it in the overlay. And do we have a total dollar amount on that off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I know it's limited to 20, so, you know,
20,000.
20 people can.
20 people.
20 people can do it every year. The cutoff is 20.
I'm sorry, thank you very much.
20 people can do the work off.
Yes.
And it's a max of 1,500 per
Max of
person.
1,500.
that in 30,000 in addition to the 68? I know that's not your program, but that's.
Yes, it's separate program.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're still talking under $100,000, so.
Peter and I are interested.
You gotta stop giving me these straight lines, Red.
All right, so Article 35.
All right, so the next article is specifically for Clause 17D. Clause 17D is a senior exemption. The base amount is $175, so we're not talking about a lot of relief here. This article will apply a cost of living increase to the $175 amount for fiscal 19 and going forward. It's a cumulative increase, so every year the base amount will go up by the cost of living increase and from the increased amount from the year before. For fiscal 18, the increase was 1.48%, so it's set by the Bureau of Labor Statistics every year.
What was it?
1.48%.
Okay.
So, we're looking at maybe it going up to $176 next year, so. But it's cumulative, so, eventually, hopefully, it'll give somebody some type of relief, so. And like I said, it's a one-time vote. We won't see it again if it passes at town meeting this year.
Okay.
How much does this one cost the town?
$175 is the base amount. We double, so $350, and then we're going to be adding hopefully a cost of living increase to the base amount every year.
Times how many people?
Right now, I think we have 2 people that get 17D. So
Oh.
there's not a lot of people that get this one.
So this is for $700? Oh.
And that's going to bring me to the next one, which is why
Article
not a lot of
36.
people qualify for these because
Mhm.
Article 36 raises the adjusted asset limit for Clause 17D. In order to qualify for 17D, you cannot have more than $40,000 in assets.
Okay.
So this will apply, again, the same cost of living set by the Bureau of Labor Statistics every year, cumulative for fiscal 19 and every fiscal year going forward.
And those assets would include equity in a home or?
It
not?
excludes your home.
Excludes.
It excludes cemetery plots.
Okay.
It's just, what you have, cash savings, stocks, bonds, things like that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I guess 37 is yours as well.
37 is for Clause 41C. 41C right now, the base amount, this is an interesting one, the base amount is $500, which we double to $1,000. There's also an additional special legislation that was adopted years ago that actually doubles the double. So people can actually earn up to $2,000 a year. It only increases by the amount your taxes have increased from the prior year. So people get all sorts of amounts. Some people get $1,500, some people get $1,800. We have to take the prior year's tax and pretty much, see if it's gone up. If your tax bill hasn't gone up, then you don't get the additional increase. Problem with these exemptions, like I said, they're not, in order to get them, you pretty much have to be destitute. The income requirements for 41C are $20,000 a year if you're single, $30,000 a year if you're married. Assets, if you're single, cannot be more than $40,000. Assets, if you're married, cannot be more than $55,000. So this would add the cost of living adjustment to each of those things, income requirements and asset requirements, and will be cumulative for fiscal 19 and all future fiscal years going forward.
So how much does that one cost? Article 37.
This is the one we have the most people that qualify for, 41C.
Are these 4 different things that people can qualify for?
There's a lot of different personal exemptions that we have. I mean, we have the CPA exemption, we have the 17D, 41C. There are a whole bunch of different veteran ones that we offer. We probably offer about 8 different veterans ones, depending on what your level of disability is. 37 is for blind persons, so.
So how does this compare to the first 17D one, as far as
41C,
aggregate?
we have the majority, I'd say the majority of the cost of that, approximately $68,000, lies with 41C and the veterans. I'd say it's probably split between the two. So. We're hoping that we could, by raising these income and asset limits, eventually get more seniors to qualify. I mean, I can't tell you how many seniors come to our counter just basically in tears because they can't afford their taxes. So, whatever we can do to help them qualify for.
Can we go more than we're doing?
This is the max. This is, I've done the research, this is the absolute max. I mean, this has always been available, the cost of living adjustment, but Stowe has never chosen to do it.
It's the max to get a match or something, or can't we just
No,
do
it's
this
just
if we
that
want?
you can increase, up to 100% of the cost of living. You could say, well, we only want to give them 50% of the cost of living adjustment. I mean, considering these adjustments range about 1 to 1.5%, I think 100% of the cost of living would be appropriate in this case. So.
Can we make our own rules? Can't we? Who's,
Oh. No, it's set by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
These are, the general rule is you can't charge some people less on the property taxes than others.
okay,
I mean, if you did, you'd get into all kinds of invidious distinctions.
okay.
These are ordered exemptions that towns can follow if they want to. But otherwise, we can't just say,
Yeah, you can give yourself, yeah.
you're a senior.
But there's
and you
plenty
got
of
red
other
hair, so-
exemptions out there, right? I mean,
Pardon?
there's plenty of other exemptions
I don't-
that can decrease your property tax than just the senior stuff.
Well, I
Are those
would,
all statute driven?
I don't know of any other exemptions.
Like
other
farm
than-
exemptions or anything like that as far as?
Well, I mean, there's different tax programs like Chapter 61, 61A and B. I mean, but those are way different than, it's not a personal exemption.
yeah, and the kinds of things that we're talking about here are really the most needy. Not every senior gets to take advantage of this.
I mean, don't get me wrong, in some towns, $175 might make a difference in your tax bill, but in a community like Stowe, where the average tax bill is approaching $10,000 a year, it only makes sense to give as much relief as you can.
Any other questions
Thank
from
you.
the public? Thank you for that, Ms. Fox. So the next article is Article 38, and it basically allows us to pay the cost of to appropriate premiums for the sale of bonds. There's no specific dollar amount with that one. 39, we have the option to raise and appropriate and transfer $2,000 to deal with foreclosures, among other things. Stowe TV expenses is Article 40. That's quite a large number at $172,000 almost. A lot of that is done through a separate fund that comes from, can I recognize the liaison to the
Yes, and
town.
I speak boldly because the executive director of the LACAC is here, and she will correct me quite quickly when I'm wrong. But knowing her reticence, I will speak perhaps for the committee. This is all money that is raised from charges that Massachusetts statute authorizes communities to tack on to cable TV, your cable TV bill. So this is a pure appropriate and transfer.
Right,
And up until last year, we didn't even review this.
correct. Now, the state asked that every town, or forced every town to put it on their warrant so they knew how the money was being appropriated and transferred, but
Because there were some communities, unlike Stowe,
that were less than forthright about how they were being spent.
I don't want to say about that, but they were less than transparent. And up until this year, and including this year, the Stowe TV, although this is probably why we're getting the hats now. Stowe TV gets that money, and then, but up until this year, any kind of capital, anything that meant a capital project improvement, they would go to capital planning, even though technically they didn't have to under the
Right.
statute.
That law has actually not gone into effect.
I'm sorry?
That regulation has actually not gone into effect.
That's what the sta- that's
It
what
never
it
went
is.
into effect. they keep giving a moratorium, just so you
Okay. Needless to say, any transfers that happened, it's quite a big number, but it's coming out of a fund that's doesn't affect how the town collects or appropriates money. It's coming from a separate fund generated from people who pay cable fees, effectively. All right, so for Article 41, it looks like there's been some adjustment to the reserves for last year's CPC accounts. Do you have anything you could share on that, Atlee? Do you know why we're adding $1,000 to each one of those?
So this is where we overestimated the income. Oh, sorry. We underestimated the income and therefore did not put enough into the individual resources.
Okay.
10% of the CPA charge needs to go to the dedicated bins.
So did we get more matching funds and effectively, is that,
Yeah.
okay. So we're truing up that account.
It's not chewing up that account. It really is putting reservation of the fund coming into the CBC for the purposes of their allocation. And in this instance, we did not allocate sufficient fund for the individual dedicated category.
Correct. Okay. So we didn't put in the total 10% for each one of these categories. So that's
Right.
it's matching that. So we are, Article 43 comes from the CPC and Historical Commission. We're allocating $175,000 to do some restorations at the Historic Town Hall. Did you have?
I believe you missed Article 42, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thank you. So I'll back up. These are related. The CPC and the Historical Commissions are seeking $30,000 of design funds, I believe, from the. No, this is actually not design funds. This is actually from the unreserved CPC fund to replace the roof. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And excuse me, so in the next Article 43, they're seeking $175,000 to restore the historic town hall, the one across the way here.
No, that's the design funds.
These are the design funds for us. Yep. So that's usually the first stage in a project. The Randall Library in Article 40. I'm sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah.
$175,000. Is Craig explain why he needs such a large amount just for design funds?
Yes.
10%.
Let's
He
see.
went quite extensively over the details of that.
Then I won't ask you to reiterate it here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer, Alan. Do we have any further information on this?
He has come on in principle. It's a very large project. There's a lot of design, I guess, that goes into that particular project and assessment.
Okay, no, I get that. I mean, it's a traditional 10%.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about the other 90%, which is implied here but not voted on here. The question is the same one I've had for a year. Why does it take $2 million to fix that building?
Oh, you ain't gonna address that tonight.
Okay. That was my question, whether we had information on
You
that.
ain't gonna address that tonight.
But that is, in the spirit of reading the tea leaves from the warrant, this is typically 10%
Right.
is sought, and
No,
so
it's
this is a
a-
$1.7 million project
Right.
to repair. So
Because
typically
the
these
roof-
design funds, sharp, what comes out of it is at not a fuzzy budget, but an actual budget, and then the town can decide whether they want to vote on that project. I think it's notable to mention that this is coming out of the CPC funds, right? So again, this is budget neutral. But we did self-tax ourselves to put that money into the CPC, so it's not like it is in tax dollars, it's just not going to affect.
And CPA funds are, this is one of the three
Yep, this is
three
appropriate.
categories that it is, and this is definitely a historic property, and it is actually a historic property that's under significant damage. So the town needs to figure out how they want to restore and preserve it. In what shape and form.
And these design funds will help determine that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Article 44 is supplemental funds for the historical library building. Peter, do you know, can you share any light on that?
Sure, there's been an appropriation, there's an ongoing restoration of the library now, mostly the upper floor. There was an appropriation last year. I don't have the exact number, but it was a 335, somewhere in that range. And
365.
365, and the main, this is some cost overruns, of which the main one, about half of this, I believe, Atlee may have more specific numbers, is for an additional, an add-on 3, which is storm windows, which were not in the original budget. And the other, another portion of this is that there was some asbestos found in, I believe, 6 windows, and that was not budgeted for. It's not a huge amount, but maybe, I don't know, $1,000 per window for that. And also, some of the storage of the historic documents, musket, etc., I think is in there as well. So it's just a cost overrun from last year. And the biggest was the addition of the decision to put storm windows with UV protection on them.
Which is important since it's a historical part of the library.
Yep.
So again, this is coming out of the CPC reserve fund, which is earmarked specifically for historic. So this is a budget neutral article. The Recreation Department is, along with the CPC, is seeking funds that are earmarked for recreation, $20,000 to finish up the Pine Bluff project. Again, this is budget neutral. It's coming out of those funds, which we've already taxed ourselves. Article 46 is, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this property name. Cornelius. In fact, I don't know if we could call on one of the selectmen to talk a little bit about this article, since it's actually quite complex and there's multiple spending items in it. Would you be willing
Is
to?
Kathy joining us, or?
Kathy was going to join us. We could call her down, but
Yeah,
perhaps
I
you could chat about it.
don't think I could do
Okay.
as good a job as
Okay.
Kathy.
So all right, we'll hold that one for a
She's-
second. We'll
She's
have
coming down, right?
we'll have Kathy
Yeah,
come
we'll-
down. So we'll skip that one for now. I believe this one is. So there's a couple articles here for the Stowe Municipal Housing Trust. Maybe you could go ask Kathy if she could come down.
I can go there.
Do you mind? Okay, thank you. They're changing a couple ways they operate. It looks like changing the number of trustees they have, and the way that they vote on things. Does our liaison have anything to share on that? No.
I thought that was you.
I'm pretty sure it's Julian.
I don't think, I mean,
No, this is not smart, right?
that was
Yeah, this
mine.
is smart.
It's smart. All right. The real quick answer is they're having trouble getting
Oh, that's right.
quorums,
Okay.
so they have to reduce the
From 7 to 5.
7 to 5.
That's
Okay.
right.
And I keep trying to, I keep beating the bushes, and people tell me that they're interested, and then they never follow up. But it's an important committee, and they have trouble, as you know, when they act, sometimes they have to act quickly, and if they don't have a quorum, it's impossible for them to meet the deadlines that some of these Chapter 61 deals impose. So, they're reducing the number from 7 to 5, which is a shame.
Okay.
Not in terms of reduction of the numbers, but it's a shame that we don't have the volunteers. I mean, I remember when this thing was overstaffed.
If you, how hard is it to change the rules so that you can get a finance committee member on there? Because I tried to join, but I can't because I'm on finance.
We will investigate that.
Yeah,
There's only a
just
couple
get out
committees that you
there,
can be
if
on.
We can change the rules to.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi there. You want me there?
Yeah, you can come and sit.
Sure.
So is this 5 voting members plus the chairman, or 5 voting members including the chairman?
I think it's 5, including the chair.
Yeah.
The board,
If I read that right, the
our distaff member of the Board of Selectmen, Ingeborg Clark, on the far end of this row, she can maybe tell you a little bit more about SMOT configuration.
I'm not prepared, I'm sorry.
Okay.
How many people are on SMOT?
Oh, is this the one where yes, there's 5 of us, but is this the bylaw question?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
reducing it
Going
from 7 to 5.
It's because we can't get enough members and we have difficulty getting a quorum.
Okay.
If other people would join us, we'd be more than happy, but we've been unsuccessful.
And there's always a possibility, I would imagine, for associate members, right?
We'd take anybody.
Okay.
It's a clarion call for members,
Desperation.
for
Nobody-
affordable housing advocates to join the board, so please join us.
Yeah.
So will you take FinCom? That was the question. FinCom?
I tried to join and they said I couldn't.
Smart. I
Because you can't be a FinCom member.
Yeah, there's only a couple boards you can be, I think
Can you change
CPC's.
the rules to let a FinCom member on it?
I think it's a town clerk question, actually. Because like, you know, he's a voting member on CPC, but, so. There's other people who want to join
Yeah,
a
we'll
committee
see.
that they can't because they're on other boards, so. All right, why don't we keep moving along here?
Well, Kathy's
So we have for
Well, we-
Facebook units.
Cornelius.
Well, she's here for something else, so let's just finish this.
You wanted-
Yeah, you asked me
Yeah.
together for committees.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just, there's only 2 more articles, and then we'll come back to that one. So SMOT has another article that looks like it's increasing the number that a member, or that the trustees can vote for. Do you know about
Right,
this
so
one,
I'm
Ingeborg?
not the most qualified, but I can tell you the general sense was that if we, and I hope I'm not screwing this up, but we wanted the ability to ask for that much more money in the event that we had the opportunity to respond, to buy housing
Okay,
or support housing, because the 200 is a little old,
yes,
hasn't been raised in a while.
okay.
But that, and there's more to it than that, I just wanted to prepare, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I could all this.
That's okay. Any questions on that?
What would happen if that were not approved?
We would be less flexible in being able to respond to opportunities.
They could do things on their own. They'd have to start going to the town, to the Board of Selectmen, to CPC.
Okay.
well, it's just the dollar amount's changing, right? You can still do it now to 200,000, you won't be able to do it
Yes.
before.
So now they'll be able to do it to 400,000. So it's an administrative change. For legal services, this is actually going down from last year, from 70,000 to 40, I believe. This pays for our legal bills. Town administrators scrutinize this quite closely. We're looking for $29,000, the town administrator is, to pay to engineer the Lake Balloon Dam, which is in need of some repairs.
So, does anybody know why we're voting on this again? We voted on this last year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. Mike Clayton.
The free cash wasn't certified last year when we voted to have this project done. So I've been pulling money out of our own budget to try and get the inspection done, and we've run out of money in our
Were
budget.
you the only one
So
affected by the free cash not being certified?
I don't know who else
Yes.
was.
Because originally in the budgeting process from last fiscal year, it was thought that we could just take free cash out and appropriate it for these engineering services. And then we learned, much to our chagrin, that you can't do that in the middle of the fiscal year. You have to wait until the free cash is certified, even if you set the money aside. I think our town administrator spoke about it at the budget meeting.
Yeah, I still don't understand.
On Tuesday.
Okay.
But, yeah, this is kind of, to turn around and bit us on the butt, trying to get this strap trying to
Yeah.
keep things going. But yes, to the answer to your question, yes, this is the only thing where we got caught.
I broke up their meeting. It doesn't matter.
Is that right,
We
Mike?
can- I mean, it's not.
All right, does it satisfy everyone? Okay. we've had significant storms this year, so we're allowed to deficit spend as it's one of the few things that we can deficit spend, and there's been considerable amount. The town administrator's asking for $50,000. So that's going to be an article that we'll need to fund separately. The police department historically has asked for $5,000 for the last few years, my understanding, to fund a lake boom patrol, specifically to be on the boat so the police can handle the rest of the duties for the town. For veteran benefits, there's $35,000 for us to satisfy our obligation to our veterans. We're accepting a land donation from Boxborough Road. I believe this is from the, what's the property?
Regency.
The Regency. They're giving some land to us, which the board secretary, I think, commented on the last meeting. We're going to be transferring some money, Article 55, if we agree to this. The planning board is supporting this to transfer, it's hard to read here, but it's $1,600 into the sidewalk fund. Did I read that? Oh, sorry, $21,600 into the sidewalk fund, which had been depleted.
You can ask Mike, but I think that might have to do with Lower Village.
I'm not sure, I don't think it
says-
does, that's a planning board item, but I think that's just for general sidewalks around town.
And it speaks specifically for the Regency at Stowe Development.
They are not
Oh,
putting
okay.
in a sidewalk, they are paying for it.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that, Ally? Can you say that
What
again?
is that?
They're not constructing, they're getting the payment from the Regency.
In lieu of building.
Rather than building the sidewalk, they're paying into the sidewalk fund.
Is that clear?
So where are we transferring the money?
They're not transferring it, they're
Transferring.
putting it into the sidewalk fund, which is a fund that the county.
I see, got it, okay.
Department has.
Looks like we're going to have a temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments. I think this has been covered extensively in the selectmen's meeting.
Yes, this continues the moratorium, actually asking for a couple more months for us to make plans with respect to what we want to do in terms of bylaws and perhaps prohibition of certain recreational facility sales. Did you get the email today on
Yes.
from the town clerk?
We did get the email.
Okay, I'll be happy to fill that in a little bit
Why
more,
don't-
but I don't want to interrupt or.
No, you can, why don't you just give it
No,
over?
I'd rather-
It
I'd
doesn't
rather
have any
not-
fiscal effect, does it?
It doesn't have any fiscal
Right.
effect, so,
What, the town clerk?
yes,
Yeah, it does.
it does, okay.
Well, but why don't you hear about Cornelius?
Okay,
Respectful suggestion.
all right. We can go back to Cornelius. All right, so Article 46, the purchase of Cornelius property. Would you care to enlighten us on,
Sure,
different
we
parts?
talked about this fairly extensively when we had our budget hearing with you all, but this is about a 50-acre parcel on Red Acre Road. As I think folks know, it's been a priority for the town for acquisition for about 15 years. We were fortunate to be able to strike a deal with Maryland Cornelius at an excellent price this past December, and have worked with SMOT, have worked with CPC, and then most recently the town council to craft the warrant article to try to accomplish the goals of the project. So what this article will do is authorize the acquisition of the parcel by the town for two purposes. And I have a map that I can show you. The parcel will be divided into two portions. This actually doesn't show the whole parcel, but it just gives you a sense. The portion closest to Red Acre Road, which contains some existing structures, will be used for affordable housing purposes by SMOT. And then the remainder of the parcel, which is adjacent to Captain Sargent Conservation Area and Red Acre Woodlands, would be acquired for open space, passive recreation, water supply purposes. In our Stowe Conservation Trust has actually fronted a deposit that enabled the
Okay.
town to be able to purchase the property. It secured it essentially. And
How much was that?
22.5.
Okay.
So that's money that the town will not have to pay. That will be subtracted from our total cost, and they will leave that in the project.
Yeah, great.
And SMOT has agreed that the property will be developed for no more than 6 affordable housing units. That is in the warrant article. It will also be in the deed.
Okay.
The portion that's conveyed to them, we're fully on board with that. And we have met with almost all of the neighbors to the property. 1 or 2 of them have been elusive, to talk to them about the plans for the property. We had a meeting, actually, all the direct abutters that were invited.
Okay.
And I would say that at least at that meeting, there was 100% support
Yeah, that's
for
good.
the concept. Obviously, everybody's eager to see some sketch plans, and SMART is working on those now. We have gotten agreement from the CPC to recommend the amount in the article, $215,000, that will go toward funding the open space portion of the property. And that also includes a little bit of due diligence money, so we're having a survey done, we're having paperwork done. And then the portion that is being acquired by SMOT will be acquired with funds that they already have.
That's the
in hand.
225?
That's 225, and that's coming from payments that the retirement agency has Stowe in payments for housing. So we're excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity for conservation and housing interests to work in partnership with each other. I think we're all kind of fully supportive of what each other are doing here, and it's been a nice working partnership so far.
So walk me through the article here, because $450,000, that's,
So $450,000 is the total purchase price.
okay,
So that's, the first paragraph is just the authorization to acquire
okay,
for the specific purposes of conservation, recreation, and water supply, and the development of community housing. The article specifies that the 2 parcels will be clearly identified and delineated
okay,
at the closing. And then the second paragraph authorizes the expenditure of community preservation funds. The third paragraph.
so is that 215 in addition to the 450, or that's part of it?
No, that's part of the
Okay.
450. So think of it as 450 is the total.
Yeah,
Then 215 is acquiring the open space piece.
okay,
The third paragraph authorizes the conveyance of restrictions and easements. So
Yeah.
there will be some easements across the housing parcel to access the conservation parcel.
right,
There will be easements across the housing parcel for water supply lines if they're
Okay.
ever needed. And then we're also required to convey a conservation restriction by the Community Preservation Act. So that's all in paragraph 3. And then if you scroll down, the next 2 paragraphs stipulate that the open space parcel will be transferred to the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission, and that the housing parcel will be transferred to the care, custody, and control of SMOT in exchange for their payment of $225.
I
Again,
see.
The other part of the $450. And
Okay.
that is where the limitation on the number of dwelling units is also contained.
so this is largely budget neutral? Okay,
Yep. All of the
That's
funds
good.
are coming from either Stowe Conservation Trust, Community Preservation Act funds.
so 225 plus 215 is about 240.
The total adds up to a little bit more than 450, and that's
Uh-huh.
because the 215 includes legal, title, appraisal, and survey.
Okay,
So we did kind of a total budget, subtracted the 22.5 that's been provided for Stowe Conservation
Okay.
Trust. So maybe not completely obvious, but the conservation interests are paying for a portion of the parcel of half, and SMOT is paying for a portion of the parcel of half.
okay. And it's effectively budget neutral. Oh,
I can wait my turn.
no, Brian, go ahead.
Kathy, if I may ask my question directly. If this was just a straight CPA article, then it would be by majority vote. But because we're acquiring land,
It's good.
two-thirds.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from public? Oh, Peter, go ahead.
Well, public and. I have a few. This is, thank you for your work. Interesting, proposal. This, where's the smart portion of this? Is it the yellow line here?
It's everything on the Red Acre side of the yellow line.
So about the
So
houses
it's
here?
behind all the houses here.
Correct. And the reason for that is that we wanted to make that as close to a legal building lot as possible, so it needs to take its 200 feet of frontage on town line.
Down here?
Yeah.
Will that be the entrance?
No, the entrance will be off Red Acre.
Will be right next to the existing house? Just a driveway or whatever, right of way?
And actually, the agreement that we have with them stipulates that there will be no access to town line.
So this house here is gonna be the,
Well, no, that house was sold separately, right? The existing house, one of the existing houses was sold
So-
separately, is that correct?
Your finger is on the barns.
Okay,
And,
there you go,
right
yeah,
here?
no, I'm right here,
But
actually.
the
looking for it.
frontage lot on Red Acre Road that used to be Maryland Communities' house was sold separately.
Right, and the barns will be destroyed or not, or whatever.
They're already self-demolishing.
That's why it's a push down, it's not a knockdown.
And is that where the housing's going, as far as you know?
The houses are
Yes,
going
the
along.
plan
Oh, they're gonna go
is-
along here.
The plan is to put the new affordable units in the approximate footprint of the old barns.
Okay.
And those structures are so huge that you can fit 3 duplexes in that.
Okay.
So we've been very active and effectively so, and I've never seen you combine, or anyone combine the SMOT and the CPC. Certainly makes it more complicated.
Mhm.
So once SMOT's in, any resale or anything would have to maintain whatever restrictions that,
Correct.
that
And that's why those restrictions are being put not just in the town meeting article, but in the deed. So that if SMOD resells the parcel, those restrictions will carry.
And I guess my question is why? I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with well, I don't know your exact opinion, but I'm in favor of the affordable housing initiatives, and you've certainly provided a vehicle to facilitate that. But it also complicates it.
It does complicate it, and I guess in my mind, there's kind of 3 reasons why. The first is that when we originally tried to acquire this property back in 2003, 2004, it was intended to be a marriage of open space and affordable housing. So we're sort
I don't recall
of
that.
continuing through with that.
I don't recall that.
It was, there were,
The deal that fell through
there
was
was
for
CPA
housing.
money for affordable housing and CPA money for open space voted for the property. So that's one. 2 is that in terms of kind of what is of interest for conservation, it's really the rear portion of the property. The front part
Right.
that has structures is suitable for housing, and I think that both Stowe Conservation Trust and I and SMOT are interested in trying to demonstrate that we can work together on a project of this scale, because I think there will be some bigger opportunities coming to the town where we have the potential to do housing and open space together. And it's been done in many communities. The town of Lincoln has done a number of projects like this. So I think we'd like to show that we can make it work.
Can I ask a question?
Good answer.
Kathy, how will the 6 affordable housing units be constructed and financed? And is it the intent of SMOT to then sell the property
That
the
is
units?
something that they are still in discussions about, so I don't want to speak for them, and I know Rita works here and on SMOT. They've been working with their consultant to come up with some conceptual designs. My guess is that when they get to that point, they're gonna put it out to bid and look for a developer partner to come in and do
Okay,
it.
so we're not likely to be approached next year for the financing to build these houses?
They may be seeking CPA funds, I don't
Okay.
know. I
Okay,
think it's,
CPA funds,
Yeah.
fine, good.
yeah.
Okay.
Any
I
other
think the
questions?
goal is to maximize the number of units that are affordable out of the 6. So, you know, I mean, you could do, to do math, you could do 4 market rate units and 2 affordables, but I think the goal is really to have the
And 6 is the limit as far as you know?
I can just tell you a
Is that
little
a-
more about the
yeah,
process.
please.
That our consultant is going through different financial numbers on the number of units, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, those kinds of things, and how they will be clustered on the parcel. And that, what, like Kathy correctly stated, that it would go to, out to bid for developers to do the work. So that's the process that SMOT is going through right now. So our consultant is going through these various exercises, and I think we have a meeting in the next week or 2 where we'll be talking about more data on that. And he's coming up with sketches.
And I'll just add, we are intending to meet with the neighbors again in the next couple of weeks to kind of give them an update, show them some concept sketches, get a little bit more feedback from them.
Yeah, exactly, because we want to work with them and get the feedback that they may have in terms of access, setback, types of buildings, like taking into account the historical housing along Red Acre Road, and seeing if we can limit that.
Is that accurate that they won't all be affordable housing units?
I think they will be, I think that's the plan.
Okay,
That's the current plan,
yeah,
but,
okay.
you know, we're going through all the numbers. Obviously, we want to
As you remember, Paul, there's gonna be a gap between what it costs to build them and what we can sell them for. And that's gonna have to be made up. Can that be all from CPC funds?
We
Is
pay
that-
for that.
Could be.
Okay. But that's where, I mean, it is implied that there'd be further costs if that part of it goes forward.
Brian?
Clarification on that one point. Will housing that is erected on this parcel that are carrying custody of SMOT all be affordable housing, or would they perhaps have market rate housing?
You're asking me?
Yes,
Oh, sorry.
either one of you. Is it gonna be in the deed that's,
I think right now it says affordable, 6 affordable units, doesn't it say that? I
It
haven't
says that
read
in the
this, so I
warrant,
can't-
yeah.
It's a maximum.
A maximum of 6
Because that-
units, and it's affordable units.
the remaining portion of the property acquired for community housing purposes to be placed on the custody of Stowe Municipal Affordable Housing Trust? Does that mean that they will all be affordable housing?
At present, we're talking about affordable housing.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying, is it going to be in the deed that the up to 6 units have to be for affordable housing?
No, it's not going to be, and here's
Okay,
why.
that's all I wanted to find out.
Do you want to know why?
I'll take that too.
SMOT needs an exit. So worst case scenario, they try to permit an affordable housing project on this site and end up in 2 rounds of litigation and decide to give it up. They would have the ability, subject to a zoning change, to sell the lot for 1 single family house. Is what the number. But we would have to change the zoning to allow that, because currently it's on recreation and conservation. And they understand that as well.
Okay, I was just gonna say they do. All right.
I'd like to hope that if we get to that point, you know, that everybody would recognize that, you know, it's not happening.
We all believe in happy endings. But I'm just saying that, you know, the scenario you're contemplating is a complete breakdown, which won't occur for another 3 or 4 years, and God knows who's in the town or the town government then.
Right. So,
There's projects
from the housing thing, used to be just considered as the first phase out of it. This is the opportunity of getting the land, and you have the frame of what the maximum is. This article needs to be looked at in that context.
Okay.
I can just thank you for taking the initiative to do that. As you say, it's been quite a while, nothing done there. And, with the whole Red Acre parcel surrounding it, so questions about exactly how it's getting through, but I appreciate the effort. For what?
There's been a lot of uncertainty for the
Mhm.
neighbors. I think that they'll be happy to have this.
It's true also.
All right, let's keep moving here. So I believe.
Control. This is a very nicely laid out.
Okay. So I believe we got up to Lake Boone. We were on veterans. We're accepting some land from the Regency. We talked about the sidewalk fund. With respect to the moratorium, was there anything else you wanted to add, Brian, for this?
Yeah,
The fiscal
if you've seen
implications?
the email today from the town clerk, he kind of puts a small wrinkle, but even small wrinkles.
Oh, is this the $6,000 for a special election?
Are troublesome at this point in time. If you recall our discussions in the Board of Selectmen of two meetings ago, we were talking about presenting a possible ban on recreational facilities, a ban on recreational facilities that allowed smoke-in lounges, or perhaps a ban on industrial. We hadn't made that decision, but we thought that we might want to present it to the town for their consideration. And it was decided not to rush things for this town meeting, but because we were going to need a special town meeting in the fall to present that along with all the bylaws and the 3% charge if the town does go forward with recreational facility licensing. Then we would, if there was going to be on the, if the question on whether or not we should ban these recreational facilities and industrial and agricultural facilities straight out, it was decided it would be better to be put on the November 6th ballot, because that way you'd have greater cross-sections of the community. 80% will likely vote on the November 6th election. Now, our town clerk just advised us today that she's learned from the State Elections Commission that the state ballot, where you vote for state rep, state senator, et cetera, cannot include any of these questions. So she will have to set up a separate ballot with the separate poll workers and separate ballots, of course, just for any such question that we decide on. And that would be, her estimate, a cost of an additional $6,000 that hadn't been budgeted. We're going to have to take we're going to have to make a decision on our next selectmen's meeting. Do we want to just take the ban away from the town so that they wouldn't have an opportunity to vote on it at town meeting and a town election? That would be an outright ban on recreational facilities, a ban on recreational facilities combined with a smoking lounge, or the industrial the industrial manufacture of marijuana. I don't know if we're ready for that, but if we're going to still consider our options in that regard over the summer as originally planned, we're going to need to budget another $6,000 for that special election. If we eventually decide we're not going to put the question to the town, then that $6,000 would go back to you guys in the reserve fund. Or it would be free cash.
Free cash.
But
But if we do, the budget has to reflect this additional cost. Did I make that clear? I'm
Yes.
sorry if I know I went on too long.
No, that's clear. So
I mean,
next
please
Tuesday,
stop me,
we'll,
anybody, stop me if I'm not being clear.
next Tuesday, we'll learn if the town clerk's budget needs to be increased by 6K to answer this question.
Well, if we don't do it, she'll move it on down before the town meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you for enlightening on that. So Article 57 has to deal with some updates to the erosion standards here. This is from the planning board. We'll learn more about that. So some additional amendments to the zoning bylaw for industrial uses, something we haven't been enlightened about yet on FinCom. These two are budget neutral. And the last article is the town election, which deals with some administrative stuff with respect to the town meeting and how the town operates. So, is there any other questions that anybody has from the public on any of the articles that we went over tonight that you're interested in knowing more about? Any questions from FinCom? So with that in mind, I think this concludes our public hearing, and we thank everybody for coming out, for everybody at home, and appreciate you spending some time with us to learn more about how our town operates. Please show up to the town meeting and vote. Thank you.